Hi everyone, I wanted to talk today about the Magnolia Meter project and empathy. Basically, the Magnolia Meter project is simply a way to talk about empathy by measuring the characters in the film, the 10 main characters, on a scale of 1 to 10 based on how empathetic they are. And Donnie Smith is number 7. And the character who plays him, by the way, William H. Macy, is one of my all-time favorite actors. There is someone who is so brave. He will display the worst, most pathetic parts of himself for the entire world to see forever on film. I mean, speaking for myself, I cannot imagine being an actress and doing the same thing. I'm willing to perhaps write about, the darker parts of myself or to put it into a piece of artwork. But to act it out, that's a whole level of brave that you just have to admire. So, and his character at this point of his life in the film really doesn't have much going for him. At the very beginning, he's desperate to get these braces, and you don't find out exactly why until a little later, but he loses his job right after. And so you find out that he's in love with this bartender, and he's convinced that if he only wins the love of this bartender by getting these braces, that everything in his life will be all right, and so that brings me back to the subject of empathy, because his intense emotions, I believe, blind him from seeing things from other people's point of view, like especially his former employer. He's convinced that his former employer, by firing him, is preventing him from getting the love of his life, and so it's totally justifiable to rob this person to get the money he needs and get the braces he needs. But he's able to correct himself before any lasting damage is done. And his intense emotions also prevent him from seeing things from Brad's point of view, the person he supposedly loves. But, you have to wonder, why would he even think that? Has he even spoken to Brad? They don't even seem to be close. He's just decided, he's made up this whole story in his head that Brad is the answer to all his problems, and in other words, he's coming from a place of great need. And, anyone who's ever dated someone who has come off as, like, too strongly at first, like they've decided you are the one before, and this person doesn't even know you. What is your first impulse? But to run far, far away, right? And so I think the problem with Donnie Smith is he talks about it in that bar scene where his parents, when he was a child, basically stole all the money that he earned from being the quiz kid Donnie Smith on that show, What Do Kids Know, and left nothing for him in his adulthood. And also he was hit by lightning. So that genius he used to have as a child is no longer there. So here is this deeply wounded character. And his assuming that if he just wins the love of this person will heal everything is, I think, is a perfectly understandable impulse, because we've all been there, right? Like, remember the first time you ever fell in love, and maybe you weren't really aware why you loved this person. I mean, in other words, you're coming from a very unconscious place, and you're not even sure why you love this person. It usually goes back to a childhood need. I mean, as a small child, what would you do when you were scared or hurt? You would cry for a parent who would come over and make everything better. In other words, the healing would come from outside of you. And so you carry that to adulthood, and many of us do. And but that no longer works as an adult. You cannot come at another person and say, heal me, when really that can only come from within, because no other person can heal you, you know. And so instinctively we know this. We know that if a person comes at us with great need, that it's not us they want. It's something we represent. It's something they need that only they can provide for themselves. And so Donnie Smith, I think, is totally blinded to the humanity of his former boss, and even the humanity of Brad the bartender. But he does correct himself towards the end. He does realize this is wrong. And I like to think that maybe, the next day after that, that rainstorm, he goes up to Brad and simply asks him for a date. Who knows what happened after? But I love that character. I mean, we can all relate to him. And speaking in a broader context, the purpose of the Magnolia Meter project and the subject of empathy is really to put it out there in public discourse, because I feel like we are constantly encouraged to label ourselves as liberal or conservative or American or illegal immigrant or 1,000 labels that they want us to use on ourselves. Basically, boxes that we voluntarily put ourselves in. And then we are told that the people who belong to that box or that tribe want to eliminate us in our box or our tribe. And when you are feeling threatened and you are in this tiny tribe, this tiny box, it's really hard to see things from another person's point of view, much less the point of view of someone you are being told wants to destroy your tribe. And I really think that's deliberate. It's like we are being encouraged to have no empathy for anyone who does not agree with us. And so I just want to suggest that maybe if your feelings are really intense, really strong, and you strongly identify with some label or some tribe, to, if nothing else, simply take a step back. Take a step back and take the emotion out of it. And if you are able to then see things from the other person's point of view, you don't have to agree with them, but simply try. So that's the purpose of the Magnolia Meter project. And for this illustration, I wanted to experiment, to force myself to try different techniques and different looks than I've been doing for the past 6-7 years of my book illustration career. I just wanted to try new things and to see if I could to grow as an artist, basically. And so with this one, I wasn't sure what to do, but through a lot of thumbnailing, I finally arrived at the idea of how this character associates his smile, his braces, with love, but had to illustrate that, like I didn't want to put braces on him or show him in the dentist chair, or, just had to do that as simply as possible. And simply by this hand gesture of making the heart with his hands over his smile. I think, well, I hope I illustrate that idea. And then I painted it digitally on my iPad with ProCreate, an application I so love. For no other reason, that is the one reason to get an iPad Pro. And because for me, it's a lot easier than Photoshop. It can do basically everything Photoshop does. And if it can't do, like, some things it can't do, like text. You cannot put writing over your image. But you can just take your finished illustration and put it into another application. And also, I'm able to paint directly on the surface with the pencil. And for years, I've been painting digitally with a Wacom and having to look straight ahead of me at the computer while my hand was doing something else. And it was just always a very uncomfortable process. And I know some people prefer that. Some artists prefer the Wacom, but I'm like, why? It's just so uncomfortable. But maybe that's just how my brain works. Like, I want to see where my hand is. And with ProCreate also, I'm able to work to create basically any 2D technique, like pastel or drawing it with pencil, or like in this illustration, painting with oil paints. And it was a lot of fun to do. I mean, I was really frustrated in the beginning with getting the likeness, an exact likeness. I mean, William H. Macy's face is very challenging because it looks like it's so distinctive. And you feel like, as an artist, you should be able to capture it easily, but just a little bit off here and there, and you totally miss it. But I hope I've captured his likeness well enough, and I hope I've expressed the idea I wanted to express well enough, and I hope you like it. Okay, thank you. Bye.
I really do have love to give. I just don't know where to put it.